Bonjour. I think that was the most insightful conference I've ever been at where I didn't understand a single word. So, but hopefully you do. Pixar didn't happen, infographics as digital advertising. There's going to be a little bit of a slide storm now, but I'll try to stay within 10 to 12 minutes. Anyone have an idea what this might be? How about now? Still probably not. Easy one, of course, it's the fruit collector, a gardening tool helping you to collect your fruits in the garden, not to bend over anymore. Now the question is, why am I telling you about fruits when everyone is craving for lunch, carbs, pizza, pasta? My point is, when we're able to make an infographic on the bloody fruit collector, we're probably able to make an infographic on anything. And that brings me to the point why I'm here today. I'll take you on a quick tour around the jungle of infographics, show you formats and topics that might work or that might not work, and tell you at the end of the day why it's not an option to not use infographics anymore. Now, before we start, a quick intro where I work and what I do. You might have heard of Statista, one of the biggest statistics and market data portals in the world. I thought that my job is consulting with companies on infographics, videos, presentation design, microsites, data visualizations, and so forth. But to put it in the words of the 4-year-old daughter of my colleague, apparently we paint paintings and give it to people via the computer. So that's another reality. Quick experiment before we start, just to get a feeling for visual communication and some numbers behind it. How long does it roughly take you to read this, in case you can see it from back there? Probably 3 to 4, 5 seconds, but how long does it take you to understand this? How many 7s do you see? Tough one. So actually, color, size, and orientation matter when it comes to visual communication and getting messages across. That is also mirrored in probably a statistic or a fact that you've heard before. When we are actually on websites, we only read about 1/4 of what is on that website in text. The reason behind that, when we process text, as you see on the right-hand side, again, I'm not sure, oh, I can't even read it from here. There's something, it's saying there's a picture of a bird that sits in a tree. The bird is looking to the left, it's autumn, it's windy, but if you look at something like this, of course, your brain is much quicker to grasp the situation, and again, we only need around 1/10 of a second to get the idea of a visual scene compared to text. Before we start, or before I walk you through some examples, quick categorization. I've categorized some infographics into cases that are easy to read, easy to understand, easy to remember, that have potential to go viral or went viral, and I'll also show you some specific advertising examples. We'll start with one of the most simple infographics you will see today, and you might also see this week. So 2 years ago, I'm sitting on a train from Copenhagen to Malmö in Sweden, where I lived before, and next to me is the Sydsvenskan, a Swedish national newspaper, and I'm just looking at this and thinking, wow, an infographic made it to the front page, so front page potential. And basically it says, you might remember the refugee crisis back then, when a lot of refugees were traveling from Denmark to Sweden via the bridge. 2.3 million travelers were controlled in 2 months on that bridge in the train. Now, 69 of them, so 1 pixel versus a full front page, actually only looked for asylum. So 1 pixel versus 1 page. And it's not exactly the story per se you see here on this infographic. It's more the story that it triggers behind the visual, behind the design, because think about all the police shifts, think about all the people that came into work late because they had to show their passport and so forth. So I think quite a powerful example, and also simple but great contrasting design. We'll stay in Scandinavia for a moment. Probably one example where you realize, okay, something's different. You might have not seen this before. It's a super cool Danish designer who had the idea to show survey results in a way that the visual actually mirrors the topic of the result 100%. So he showed data and insights about refugees and immigrants by using a headscarf. He went into the lab and made an arrangement of liquids to show results on health and used this police do not cross line for law and order topics. I believe I'm a super good car driver, but I have no clue how an engine works until I saw this infographic. An animated GIF, to be honest, but pretty cool example how you can simplify things and how you can reduce complexity. 4 steps, 4 different colors represent 1 step each, and take 20 to 30 seconds and you'll get the idea. Also quite nice here, and a good example for successful infographics. Look at the heading, how a car engine works, how to do something, the best thing to reach something, the 5 things to achieve this and that. That's the typical trigger words that generate quite good clicks. Indeed, one of my all-time favorites, always makes me laugh. The age you peak at everything according to science. So a visualization of the things that we are best at in our life. So for me that means, for example, last year I didn't have my 30th birthday, but I had my bone mass party, because apparently that's the age where you're best, or where your bone quality is best. Maybe many of you will still have a lot of time to make a Nobel Prize winning discovery, because it happens usually with the age of 40. And quite interesting as well, 74, happiness with your body. You might think that happens at 23 or so, but apparently it's 74. And I think this one could have been used quite well for, let's say, a health insurance company or a nutrition company making a case on how to eat well or how to live well. You're going to blame me now that this statistic or this fact will stay with you forever. Infographics can be big, as you can see on the left, but just one little chapter out of it. It's fictional, of course, but apparently Daniel Craig is the only James Bond who drank more martinis than women he kissed. And also, there's a 1 in 3 chance as a woman to be killed at the end of the movie when you sleep with James Bond. So it's kind of, you need to weigh up if you want to live a peaceful life or have probably a very good night with one of the biggest womanizers on earth. Any of you remember what this might be? Maybe now you think back to all the well-spent chemistry classes in school that brought you into the positions where you're now. My point here is, however, if you go a step further, actually someone had the idea to use the periodic element from chemistry in order to show condiments that periodically go bad. So condiments, food ingredients like tzatziki and salsa, which go bad after 1 day, to lifelong companions like salt and vinegar. And the point behind that is there's a theory called framing, and if we put information into patterns that we already touched upon elsewhere, it immediately triggers a story and immediately triggers us to remember something, and we automatically kind of stare at it. Probably the most viral infographic me and my team have ever done. Briefing came from Generali, big insurance company, the bank of mum and dad, and what we've done here is we made every single statistic ourselves, meaning we didn't fake it, but we've actually built and arranged the charts. So if you look at this here, for example, this is on top is Play-Doh, that children use in kindergarten to show that 4 out of 5 British parents had unexpected one-off purchases. Then we used 3 different pencil types to show school costs, and we spent 95 cents, went down into a shop, bought a loaf of bread, cut it into pieces and made a statistic out of it. 7,500 likes on LinkedIn in 5 days, so that one went pretty well. And that's how spontaneous it was, kind of just in the office. Moving towards a little bit more typical advertising types. We tried a thing for a Danish FMCG company, a bacon manufacturer. So we did an A/B test with a banner, pretty old school. One was really text and image only, and the other one was that we've just put 3 stacks of bacon with numbers next to it on the banner here on the right-hand side and wrote, what is the world record for bacon eating, ? Linked it, of course, to their landing page. And that one performed around 65% better in terms of CTR than the other one used in the A/B test that only had text. So apparently people like data visualization. Of course, it's probably not a representative study, but that's at least our findings. Just an idea, we looked at that one before. This is how it could look as an ad, maybe if you have a call to action on the bottom saying, get the latest parliamentary election poll. I think it also makes our thumb stop when we scroll. Then this is the Statista infographic newsletter, where we usually host an infographic of the day. But here for Staples and RPC, you see 2 sponsored infographic posts. And what we've done there was we made a trigger infographic, linked it to a landing page to download their white paper. And this one here on the left had a 4.8% CTR compared to 0.6% for the ad above. Of course, another topic, another company, but still a pretty interesting increase when you add data visualization and content to it. And between those two, this one also performed better, and my suspicion is that we made this sort of blurry on purpose. So we started normal here, but then it kind of fades out, inviting people to find out more what's happening on this chart. Right, then very quick takeaways, why it's not an option to not use an infographic anymore. So first of all, as requirements, you know, make sure that the format makes sense for you. If you mostly engage with mobile-first audiences, then it probably doesn't make sense to create a landscape format. Also think about a little bit the style. In Asia, it could be that comic performs quite well, whereas in Scandinavia, minimalism is probably the right choice. Valid data, of course, you know, use sources so your brand is trustworthy, and also put them on the chart. Without graphics, an idea might be lost in a sea of words, and without words, a graphic may be lost to ambiguity. So I'm not saying the one thing is the right or the other, but it's probably the mix of both that gets out the advantages. Reduction of complexity, something I believe in strongly. There's so much noise out there, but by filtering stuff into relevant portions will bring you forward. Music is starting, meaning I need to come to an end. Connecting the dots and making the invisible visible. I can tell you 15,000 doesn't mean anything, but I could also say that in Shibuya in Tokyo, 15,000 people per green light phase cross the street, which is quite a lot. But if you then contrast that even to another number, that 15,000 is actually the amount of people that fit into Wimbledon Center Court, this kind of is more powerful, I believe. And last but not least, this is what can happen when an infographic works well. More traffic on one day for this company than usually in a whole month. And yeah, you can become kind of a brand that is well received or well perceived for sharing good content, insights and valuable stuff. And last but not least, this is still reality. People do that, watch TV, check their phones, WhatsApping friends, consuming your ads, and we even don't realize when a big whale nearly flips over our boat. That's it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you very much.